Interns, I know that you're coming to my class to see specifically formative assessment sometime next week, but I wanted to give you guys a little bit of background information to put what you're going to see into some sort of context for you. I want to start by saying that I operate my class under the premise that everything is a formative assessment until it's not. So I have throughout my unit, so right now, if we look here, this is a unit that I did starting the week of October 12th on political revolutions. So we can see that, here we have in the second week, we had a formative assessment on the French Revolution. So this is the biggest part of that unit, is talking about the French Revolution. It took a little while to get to the end, but once we do finish talking about that topic, I give them kind of what might be easiest to think of as a short quiz about that target. And then, we move on, and after a couple days, we hit our second formative assessment on Napoleon. And then finally, at the end of the unit, we hit so the third part of the unit is about Latin American revolutions. We spend a few days on that, and then we have our third and final formative assessment. So each of the kids are going to do that formative assessment. They will submit it, and I give them feedback. So if we look at, these are my grades. When you're seeing green, that means that the kids did well. If you're seeing yellow, that means that they struggled on that formative assessment. If you're seeing a blank, it means that they didn't take it at all. And we'll talk about orange in a second. So now we get to this week, and my kids are taking their unit test, which is kind of my summative assessment. For a lot of the kids, this will be the summative assessment, but I say that everything's formative until it's not, because even the kids that take this test, and if we look at it, looks like one kid has turned it in that I haven't got to yet. When they take this test, if they struggle on something, one of the ideas behind standards-based grading is that they have opportunities to fix those mistakes and earn those points back. So if I have a student who takes this test and really struggles on it, rather than punishing them for not doing well, I want to encourage them to go back to their learning, do a little bit more work, and then hopefully show me that they can, that they have some level of mastery or even proficiency on that, that target. So this is the last thing that the students will have done before you guys come and see me. So what you guys should be seeing in my class, it'll kind of help if we go back up here. So it'll be here under the political revolutions reteaching what the kids are going to be doing. This is from the last test that we took on changes in Europe, and it might help to operate here a little bit so that you guys kind of understand. The students who struggled on the individual targets, so we had 3 on this test. We had the French Revolution, we had Napoleon, and we had Latin American revolutions. If they struggled on any one of those targets, they will get a reteaching assignment in here for them to do to kind of earn back those points and show me that they know that material. So going back to the grades, if you look at the orange, these are students who actually took my unit assessment and struggled. These are the kids who are going to get that reteaching assignment. And my hope is that they'll go through, they'll do a little bit of extra work on that assignment. It'll help fill in some of the blanks that they had. And then when I ask them those questions, sorry, I keep going to the wrong class. When I ask them those questions here, they will be able to show me some level of proficiency. Now, again, going back to the grades, when you see the blanks, or the yellow, these are students who, if we're operating here in the changes in Europe area, that means they didn't take the test at all. And I'm certain that I'll have some of them over here on our current test about the political revolutions as well. For those students, I've kind of done something a little different, because I believe that most of those students, it's probably not an issue of them having a couple blanks that they need to fill in on an individual target. Most of those students haven't been participating or interacting often at all. So for them, I went into Plato and I created units that correspond to what I'm teaching in class. And the students who aren't taking the test, their kind of intervention is that I'm enrolling them in these Plato units so that they can get caught up. And my hope is that that will provide them with some content and give them, the information that they're missing in class by not participating before they take the assessment. This isn't the most elegant process. I'll be the first to admit I pride myself on how I do my formative assessments. If we were actually in person, there are a few things that I would do very differently. One of them is after a kid takes my test, if they're still struggling, I make it a point to have a conference with that student so I can take a look at exactly what they did on the test. I can see where the breakdowns were, and then we can have a conversation about that. And what I found is a lot of times students are more willing to talk about their ideas than trying to write them down. I will get much more complete and fuller answers through a conversation. It's not the easiest thing in the world to do, but it's protected time that I put into my class when I actually see the kids, because I find that the results that I get by doing those conferences are much, much, much better. And I find that it kind of helps me form better relationships with the students. I can ask them a probing question that maybe doesn't give them the answer necessarily, but can activate some of the stuff that they have in their brain about the topic that maybe they're not making the connections to at that moment. So I think that's one of the most powerful things that I do in my class, and it's something that has been hard to translate into the remote learning because the students aren't as willing to interact. Even if I can pull them into a breakout room, the kids don't want to interact as much over the Zoom. The other big takeaway that I want to make sure that you guys kind of know to put things in context is I will let students work on these assignments, and I will attempt to get them to work on making things right on these targets until the end of the semester. So these are the big things that I do, and we don't have to give a final exam, but what I will give for my final exam is basically a final opportunity for the students to show me that mastery or proficiency on the targets that they haven't already done so for. So I will let the students know about a week ahead of time what topics they still need to show me, proficiency on, and I will give them kind of a general idea of specifically what I'm looking for them to know, and then I will usually phrase it to them in a very open-ended kind of essay question so that they can kind of take and show me what they know about the topic, and then I can see exactly what it is that what knowledge about the topic they've internalized, and then what they're still struggling on. So hopefully this kind of clears some things up and puts some things in context when you guys come to visit my class. Thanks for watching.